Thank you for joining us for our webinar, Why Growth Marketing is Critical in 2023. For the best webinar viewing experience, you'll want to adjust the slider that appears to the right of the slide on your screen. We encourage you to submit any questions in the Q&A window found in the bottom panel of your screen throughout the webinar. We'll save some time for questions at the end. We'll also send out a recording of today's webinar on Friday. Today's discussion will be hosted by Instapage Senior Manager of Strategic Services, Michelle Barnes, with our special guest, Alex Sterney, Product Manager and Marketer at Switch Bike. So let's get started. Over to you, Michelle.
Thanks, Kelly. I'm super excited to be here today to discuss growth marketing with one of our favorite customers, Alex. Alex, before we dive into today's discussion, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone. Great to be here. I'm Alex. I'm the product manager at Switch. So we're a London-based tech startup selling direct to consumer. We make e-bike conversion kits. So basically the idea is it turns that old bike you've got sitting in the garage gathering dust into a powerful e-bike. So we sell globally, which comes with its own challenges, but also huge growth opportunities. And we'll be talking a bit more about that later. And we're operating in a really exciting, growing e-bike market. So valued at 17 billion in 2021, it's forecast to grow to about 41 billion in 2030. And so obviously we have a huge opportunity there. And the latest figures are showing us that 1 in 10 new e-bikes on the road last year were actually Switch converted bikes. So yeah, we have a huge focus on growth marketing, and it's been a big part of our success so far. So yeah, today we're going to be diving into some of the detail of the strategies that have really worked for us to get to this position. That's a bit about the business. So a bit about me. I joined 2.5 years ago, originally as an engineer, actually. A super small team. We were less than 10 people at that time. And in sort of classic early stage startup style, rolled up my sleeves and got stuck into a load of different areas of the business. And quickly found that my passion lies in marketing and product. So I moved across and I now sit as product manager, and I'm responsible for our product strategy and implementation and optimization. And yeah, we've seen huge growth over the past couple of years, now approaching 100 employees and 70,000 customers worldwide. So I want to talk a bit more specifically to begin with about how we actually operate as a business. It's super unusual. We've coined the term crowd shopping to sort of summarize it. The way to think of it is sort of the best bits of crowdfunding coupled with the customer support and inherent trust of an established business. So what does that mean in practice? We run stock drops once a month or once every 2 months, and visitors to our website, switchbike.com, sign up to our waitlist. We then leverage FOMO effects and economies of scale to take thousands of sales for these limited stock drop events. And we couple that with really excellent customer experience that we pride ourselves on and a track record of tens of thousands of happy customers. And that gives you quite a compelling proposition as a prospective customer. So due to the demand generated by the waitlist setup that we have, people are really happy to pre-order and receive the product 2 to 3 months later, straight to their doors. And the final piece here is the cost saving that comes with this. So we don't have stock sitting in our warehouses around the world. We dramatically reduce our costs by not having sort of next day or next week delivery, which many companies do offer. And that frees up a lot of capital and massively de-risks the business for us. And we're able to pass on the savings of that to our customers and offer them really great prices. So that combination is really a big part of what's fueled our growth so far as a business.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to get into more of this a little bit later in the webinar. But before we do, I just wanted to kick things off with an audience poll. Our question to you today is, what area of marketing do you currently fall under or categorize yourself in? Growth marketing, demand generation, revenue marketing, digital marketing, or other? What about you, Alex? Where do you categorize yourself?
Tricky one. I I'd say closer towards growth marketing, which is appropriate for today. But yeah, very similar ones.
I feel like I've touched every area of that, but let's see what the audience says.
For sure.
All right, so we have digital marketing topping the list at 54%, growth marketing following close behind at 37%, and then demand generation and revenue marketing and a few others in there. And I think like one of the things that's interesting is really all of these kind of fit into growth marketing at one stage or another. So very interesting to see these answers. And, you know, we have a lot of great content to cover today. So let's go ahead and get started. So first off, what is growth marketing? I really want to start off by saying and simply defining what we mean here. So growth marketing is the concept of guiding potential customers through every funnel phase with content that makes the learning process run smoothly. In other words, it's a strategic approach to marketing that focuses on both acquiring and retaining customers. The goal is to increase revenue, attract and keep customers, and expand brand awareness. And really all of that is within a limited advertising budget. So how does that compare to traditional marketing? Traditionally, marketing has focused a lot on the customer acquisition and brand awareness without focusing much on what happens after the customer's on board. With growth marketing, we're really focusing on the entire funnel. And this breaks down into 4 distinct stages of growth marketing: attract, engage, retain, and referral. So attract is focusing on that brand awareness. It's the very top of the funnel where visitors are just starting to learn about your brand, your product, or your service. Then it moves into engage, and this is where customers are actually purchasing your product or the conversion. Then we like to focus in on retention. So this is where it starts to deviate from traditional marketing. Here we're focusing on re-engaging with your existing customer base. For products, this can be nurturing them at the right time when they need a replacement, services, investing in improvements from customer feedback, and engaging the customer to make sure they're using every available tool to their benefit. It's fixing issues before they even start. And then finally, we have referral. This is turning your existing customers into advocates for your brand, collecting reviews, encouraging them to post about their experiences, and then sometimes even incentivizing them to bring in solid leads for purchases, which all cycles back to attract. Now that we've increased our brand reach by continuing with our existing marketing, but you can expand it even further with your network of advocates. So I'm excited to get into this a little bit further. Alex, can you share how Switch operates in these stages of the growth marketing cycle, starting with attract?
Yeah, sure. So I think ultimately this starts at the ad level for us. We do a lot of digital marketing and we put significant resource into this, and we produce all of our content in-house to take full control of that creative process. But let's talk about once they've clicked through and they're on the page, and that's my job to convert them. So we found that the closer you can get people to thinking about how they'd use the product and get utility from it, the more effective. So here we used to have like a very product focused image, and we replaced it with this sort of sunset style lifestyle image. And that gave us a 5% conversion rate lift on this page straight off the bat. One of the other ways that we do this is in our pre-launch surveys. So this is another part of our funnel, which has been super effective for us. Everyone is given the opportunity to fill out a pre-launch survey when they sign up to our waitlist, and that'll get them early access and basically let them jump the queue when it comes to the stock drop event. By asking specific questions in that survey, we're able to plant thoughts around, again, imagining yourself using the product and enjoying it. So for example, like how we would ask, how do you plan to use the Switch Kit to improve your riding experience? And the answers could be to make my commute faster, to turn up to the office sweat-free, to make cycling easier for myself, to get me out of the car and on my bike and save me money on fuel. And that really plants this seed in people's brains of like, okay, this is how I can see myself using the product. And that combined with these kind of images that you see here, we found to be quite a compelling offer. This survey actually also has a few other uses that we find. It's informed some of our decisions around the product itself and the R&D team that we have in-house. So we asked some questions about what people wanted to see. even what colors they wanted to have on the power pack. So you can see the red power pack and that image on the right there. And we were able to narrow down our color options to offer just the colors that people actually wanted. And that saved us some complexity and cost in actually producing the product and gave customers exactly what they wanted.
That's awesome. I love that, how you kind of like build that anticipation in the user, but then you use their feedback to really customize and keep your costs down as well. So after you've kind of like attracted your customers, how do you engage with them to actually convert and get into that purchase stage?
Yeah, sure. So some of the things we're doing here to engage is really around the copywriting and copywriting that punches through to people. I found this framework here to be really useful for this, from Gary Bencivenga. It basically runs you through like what you should be looking for in your copywriting and getting down on the page. So if we just quickly run through this, the problem here is e-bikes are just crazy expensive. And our promise in the short block of text is the kit is affordable and it's easy to install. You can install it at home super simply, and it will convert your bike at a fraction of the cost. The proof is in the press at the bottom there that we get. And the promise is in the small line of text there, which is sign up here, you'll get onto our wait list, you'll get access to our next stock drop, you'll see some price details, and you'll get exclusive access. And so some super simple copy and a very basic page has performed incredibly well for us. The other thing we do is we optimize for mobile a lot. Our analytics show us that 70 to 80% of our traffic to our site comes from mobile, and Instapage actually allows you to break down the visitors to your site by desktop or mobile. I'd encourage everyone to use that. It's available on the analytics page, and I'd encourage everyone to focus on mobile as much as you possibly can. We often find that desktop will outperform mobile on the pages. That can be like partly attributed to sort of people browsing more casually on their mobile phone, potentially shorter attention spans on their phone. But there are significant gains you can make if you focus on mobile, because the likelihood is the majority of your traffic is coming from mobile. So that's just one thing to flag. And yeah, I think just be innovative about how you're engaging people and converting them. Like an example here is I've used Next as our CTA. That will sign them up there. And that's a much more clickable CTA than like sign up or join, which is much more committal, I guess. And also create FOMO. We have a line just under the CTA, which is pulling through live data from our CRM of how many people have signed up in the previous day. And again, that just builds a feeling of FOMO that is quite effective.
That's awesome. And so did you do like some testing and experimentation to achieve that uplift?
Yes, so we used the experimentation tool in Instapage and tried out some other messaging, like focusing on the weight of the product, which is really important to people. Loads of the e-bikes are just insanely heavy, and people want to like lift them onto their car or lift them up if they live in a flat or whatever. And so we tried some messaging around that and more focus on limited stock and our stock drops, but ultimately landed on this. Could be several explanations why e-bikes costing a fortune was what hit home. But yeah, I think the time is also relevant. Obviously, inflation, cost of living crunch here in the UK, particularly at the moment. And so cost is a big thing for people at the moment. So I'd tailor your copy to the time as well and the relevant topics. But yeah, we were able to experiment a lot, and we were able to rapidly iterate. We're lucky that we have a lot of traffic coming to our site. And so the time between our tests, we could get statistically significant results that allowed us to iterate very quickly. And particularly in the early days, we were just seeing huge gains at each experiment. And so we could run those tests very rapidly and deploy the changes that worked as quickly as possible to then take advantage of the improvements that we were seeing for the future traffic that was coming in.
That's awesome. So then the next step, once somebody becomes a buyer of your product, how do you work on retaining them?
Yeah, so one of the things that we did with this new Switch kit is an upgrade kit. So the upgrade kit is just the power pack and the handlebar mount, and not the motor wheel that you see there in the picture. So that allows existing customers who bought our previous generations to just upgrade their kit to the new technology, basically. And we just got an enormously positive response from this. We launched this early last year and took thousands of orders and far more than we were expecting. And that was a really, really positive sign. It was right at the beginning of the launch of the new product, and it gave us two really good early signals. The first was that our customer base were engaged. They were happy with the experience that they'd had with our existing products, but also that they were excited about this new product that we'd released. And that was a real big boost for the team early on. And I guess on the topic of retention, we work very closely with our customer support team to offer a great service, because e-bike conversion kits by their very nature are quite support intensive. Each bike's slightly different, and we put a lot of work into making the installation process really simple, and we have compatibility for basically any bike. But we have that investment in the support team so that we can get on video calls with any customer anytime if they need it, to give them a bit of a hand. And that brings us much closer to the customer. We can ask questions and we can build a bit of a relationship there. One of the areas that we put a lot of work into is compatibility, pre-purchase primarily. That is a concern of people, is like, is it going to fit my bike? How can I be sure of it? And one of the things we're about to roll out actually is a new tool which will allow people to enter their specific bike information and will tell them if it's compatible or not with 0 wait time. This is relevant for new signups and will drive traffic to it, but it's also really relevant to our existing wait list. So we have like well over 1 million people in our wait list. Obviously, the majority of them haven't bought in the past, but this tool will allow us to go back to them and say, hey, we can now take your exact bike, put it through our tool and tell you if it's compatible. And if it is compatible, and the likelihood is it is, then we can tell you what kit type you need and make suggestions of what you might want to purchase. And so that's a way that we are able to potentially retain and reactivate our wait list of leads. So I think the message is like, think about how you could bring some new tools and new strategies to reactivate your leads once you have them.
Yeah, and I love how you kind of integrate that like anxiety reduction on there, where you kind of alleviate the risk of purchasing because you let them know ahead of time, will it work or will it not? So that is
Exactly.
amazing. So I love the method you've used to re-engage your existing customer base, but I'd also love to hear how Switch operates in the referral space.
Yeah, sure. So referrals is probably the toughest nut to crack, particularly in the like high-tech physical product space. I think really the secret is just make an amazing product and people will talk about it. That's relevant in most markets. But yeah, in any business, it's sort of the dream to crack this, and it can put you on some serious growth loops. We have a few ways we maximize referrals of all kinds. Reviews is a big focus of ours. We get a lot of press attention. We have a lot of customer reviews which come in, and we're working with influencers as well to spread the word. One of the newest initiatives that we have is around test rides. So we're rolling this out in a limited way at the moment, and we're partnering with cycle shops around the world really to offer rides and incentivizing them with like a cut of a sale. And one of the options we're looking at is to take things potentially a step further and expand that to our customer base. So we have obviously over 70,000 people who own a Switch kit around the world. Can we incentivize them to be a host for a test ride, for example? And the reason behind all of this is to get people to this sort of magic moment of riding the Switch kit for the first time. So many of the most successful products ever, you have that magic moment where you are really hooked by it. I'm not sure how many of you have ridden an e-bike before. The first time that like the power kicks in, having spent your life sort of sweating on a heavy push bike, it's quite a feeling, and we want to get that to as many people as we possibly can. So yeah, I think trying to focus on creating like memorable magic moments where people see real value immediately, ideally even pre-purchase, is really ideal. And the secondary benefit of that is like essentially referrals, which is people will do test rides and then they'll go home and mention it to their friends and family that they've done a test ride on a Switch kit. So it's like that natural referral there is also a secondary benefit of this new test ride scheme that we're working on.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. What I really love about what you shared is how growth marketing primarily focuses on the data analysis and the campaign creation. You talked about pulling in information from other departments to help drive success. and then how marketers can use those details to reach those goals by implementing tactical approaches that result in more engaged users and elevating your campaigns to new heights. I think my favorite part was when you pointed out how, growth marketing techniques included that experimentation. You tested the different lifestyle imagery, pulling that into your ads, what elements to include on the page. So you're really making those data-driven decisions and allowing marketers to reach their goals more tactically and analytically. And then really getting down into the deep of it, that growth marketing is not about guesswork. It's all about testing and learning what works. So taking that and then running with it. But what I'd like to dive into next is some best practices, essentially. So, in 2023, the competition for digital advertising clicks has been more fierce than it's ever been before, and costs are on the rise with a lot of teams facing budget cuts. With this competition flooding in, digital advertising platform marketers who really rely on digital advertising have to work harder in order to make every ad dollar count. So let's look at what set successful growth marketers apart from those who struggle to gain traction and dig into 4 tips to implement a growth marketing strategy at scale. The first one we want to take a look at is what we just talked about, keeping an eye on the data. So to get real results that drive revenue, the guesswork isn't going to cut it. Every experiment, every campaign, and every customer interaction should be leveraged to make the next even better. So this requires a never-ending cycle of insight and implementation. Keeping an eye on data allows for rapid shifts so you can pivot away from channels, ads, and landing pages that aren't working, and places to spend where it counts. So you're optimizing your ad dollars to make sure you're putting your money where you're getting the most effective results. Alex, how does this tie into what you've been doing at Switch?
Yeah, so I think data is ever more relevant and completely relevant for every corner of our business. And particularly on the landing page side, data is the key to unlocking compounding gains. So Instapage makes it really simple, the data side of things. Here you can see a screenshot of our dashboard, sort of top level performance of the account. And the default is always be following the data. But I think it's worth making the point that you need to be identifying the right metric to optimize for. So here's an example of where that could have gone wrong. The pages that I've shown so far, you'll maybe have noticed they've been incredibly simple. A header, a title, a block of text, an image, sign up field, a bit of press coverage. And the reason is that every bit of extra content that we added to those pages actually reduced the conversion rate of that page. Even trust builders, like custom review section, reduced the conversion rate. So it would be easy to stay laser focused on the page conversion rate and just bin off that extra content and make no changes, leaving you ultimately with a better performing page. The reality though was that the quality of the leads that signed up on richer pages, longer pages, were higher. And this was a test that we run sort of end to end. And the overall purchase conversion rate was higher for people who saw a page with slightly more information, even though that page was actually underperforming. So the answer was to provide a highly curated post sign-up experience and focus on the initial page being the highest performing. So essentially make the initial page the highest performing possible, i.e. super simple. But then post sign-up, we redirect people by the Instapage redirect when you put the sign up in to a page which is tailored for the post sign up experience. So show reviews, show deeper product information, capture more information about the user even in their sign up. And the result you get there is maximize the number of leads, but then plow the time into bumping up the quality of those leads by understanding what they're missing in the original page, and increasing, for example, for us, their understanding of the technology, their trust in the brand, the excitement to use the product. And ultimately that increases the chances of them purchasing. So there you're optimizing for the right metric, which is sales.
Yeah, I love that. It kind of reminds me of fishing, first get them on the hook and then reel them in a little bit. So you get a larger catch that way. So then the next tip that, we kind of want to focus on is that, partnering with other teams in your organization. So you touched on this a bit of, talking with other departments, but really a lot of people think that growth marketing is the sole responsibility of the marketing department, but it isn't, and it can't be, right? Every department in the organization can play a role in growth marketing, from sales to products to customer support. So, how can you expand a little bit more on how you kind of work that into your process?
Yeah, so this is obviously incredibly relevant, particularly in growth marketing. Everyone, the way I think about it is everyone in every team consumes ads in work and outside of work. And we're all the target of marketing campaigns all the time. And we're all humans. And if you boil it right down, our job in marketing is to create experiences which produce a reaction in people to ultimately take action and convert. So for me, taking ideas and feedback from across the business, regardless of where someone sits and which team they sit in, is so incredibly important to making sure that we're making the impact that we want, and also that the marketing team aren't blinkered. And yeah, I think there's also insight that you can gain from, for example, the customer support team, which I work very closely with. Is like they are the closest to the customers and they know what customer pain points are. So to keep that communication there is super important. And I also find that really invaluable in the product side of things. When we're doing kind of UX testing, I'll get people from across the business to try out this new UI that we're rolling out and work out any pain points there and remove friction. Because again, they're people and people who are using our product. And so we always want to keep that line of communication as open as possible.
Yeah, I love that. I think in CRO, conversion rate optimization, I've always said to question the status quo, essentially. So, kind of going through the experience as a user, like if you're encountering like a hesitation or something isn't clear to you, chances are it's not clear to your visitors as well. And so like, not only can you use your own feedback, but get that feedback from others in your team as well, what they've heard, what they've experienced, and kind of integrate that into your testing roadmap and optimizations.
Yeah, I love that. And we do challenge status quo as much as we possibly can. You can see that by the business model. It's so unusual, but it works super well.
Yeah, it's awesome. So then the next tip is about personalizing. So, we want to make sure that we personalize every ad campaign to a unique audience. Essentially, one message won't speak to the masses. In order to connect with the audiences, we need to speak their language, right? So your customers have endless options, but they'll return to experiences that anticipate their needs and can resonate with their values. The only way to know what resonates with your different audiences is to test it. And I'd love to hear from you, Alex. What type of personalization have you implemented on your pages?
Yeah, so you can see in front of you the translated versions of our like super simple sign up page. Doing this just overnight dramatically improved our conversion rate for visitors from those regions, and we have targeted ads sending people from the relevant region to these pages. And I think it's just intuitive. Like naturally, you're more unlikely to engage with a business who's operating outside of your country, and very obviously so. There are concerns around like, will I have to pay more import taxes? What's the customer support going to be like in my native language? All these kind of things. So we put serious investment into this, aside from creating dedicated ads in native languages. Obviously, these translated pages. We've hired multilingual support agents. And yeah, it's really returned some great results that you can see. And the latest versions of these pages, actually, we've also even added in like local press outlets in the bottom section there. So in Germany, for example, we've had some coverage from like some of the biggest bike magazines there. And so we'll add that in and just always try and iterate and run experiments as much as we possibly can.
That's awesome. So like for people who are just getting started with this, how did you translate your pages and your ads?
So we actually originally, when we started doing all of this, we did it like on Google Translate. That's sort of like the default or an equivalent sort of free translation tool. That was the classic like MVP approach. Work out if it's going to give us a result, and if it does, then we do it properly, and we put some more time and effort into it. So then we did like a paid translation service where we got native speakers to translate the text and make it flow better in the language, basically. And even that surprisingly gave us like a 15-20% uplift from Google Translation to like native speaker translation. I think it's worth noting here also, to make this really impactful, you have to translate the entire user journey. So yeah, there is that investment. It's not something you can just like try and not follow through on, but it's worth it because you unlock these huge new markets.
I love that. All right, going into our last tip, we're talking about relevant landing pages that let you scale personalization faster. So, it's really important to leverage tools that enable personalized experiences at scale. That way you can get greater ROI and secure recurring business. So Alex, kind of what tools have worked for you in terms of getting that personalization at scale?
Yeah, sure. So I think AdMap has been like a really useful tool for us that we use in Instapage. For those who aren't aware, it basically links to your Google ad account, and you can, within Instapage, map Instapage experiences to your search ads. So you're then able to view like spend and performance and see how people are converting on those pages and run experiments within those pages as well. So that's allowed our digital marketing team to work much more closely and sort of increase the synergy there, which is really important. That naturally like improves the alignment of the ad and the landing pages, and that's just highly beneficial for all landing pages. So yeah, I think like the final message really is the title of this slide is the core focus for me, which is it's obviously like far easier said than done to create relevant landing pages. There's a lot of work that goes in there, but I think the 3 things to focus on to make your pages as relevant as possible are firstly like the visitor's environment. So we talked about native language, translated pages, local connections with press outlets. I think that resonates with people a lot. Making it relevant to the visitors' like daily life. For us, that's human imagery, the lifestyle images that we looked at before, and people using the kit in a relatable way, and also planting that seed of like, how can I use this product? How is it going to improve my life? And we do that with the survey questions. And finally, like your sort of human tendencies. So make converting feel effortless. So that's like the next wording of the CTA, the curiosity, where we say, sign up to see some more price details and get access to our stock drop. People naturally want to find out what the information is. Some like herd mentality and FOMO there of showing the sign up counter on the page, how many people have signed up, you want to be part of that. And I think simplicity, like these pages are super simple. And as I said, the more we add, the worse it does. And we obviously put contingencies in place to make sure we keep the quality of the lead, like I mentioned, but keeping pages as simple as possible and copywriting as simple as possible is just very effective.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing. And I think it all ties back to like that right message, right time, in order to get that purchase in there. And I love how you kind of pulled in those human tendencies. So looking at that like curiosity, herd mentality, it's all great information. But I'd really like to just review kind of what we went over today. Again, thank you for sharing all of those great examples, Alex. As a quick recap for today, we really discussed the importance of growth marketing as part of your 2023 strategy, and really how important it is to build focus and awareness beyond awareness and acquisition, but really going into that retention and referral stage. We looked at the key aspects of growth marketing: attract, engage, retain, and referral. And then we explored 4 best practices and examples of how you can optimize your strategy to maximize profits and then minimize your risk. By keeping an eye on the data, number 1, most important thing is that data, partnering with other teams in your organization, making sure that information is flowing back and forth, personalizing every ad campaign to a unique audience. And then finally, we talked about how relevant landing pages can help you scale faster. So I would like to just thank everybody for joining. We're going to go into a quick Q&A now and see if you have any questions for us.
All right. Thank you so much, Alex and Michelle. Really great discussion, really great tips. We do have some questions here and we have about 10 minutes left. So let's dive in. All right, Michelle, I'm going to kick this one over to you. So going back to the first tip, which was keeping an eye on the data, what are the best KPIs and data points to track?
So I think this kind of ties back to what Alex was mentioning is, looking at like your revenue, the quality of the leads in there. So, making sure that you're not just getting like the number of leads, but like how many of those are quality leads. Those are good key performance indicators. And then seeing like how engaged your visitors are. So I know tying back into, our base metrics of like bounce rate, but then also looking at like how many of people that are staying on the page are actually converting. So I like to look at transactions. I like to look at user sessions, how many of those users are turning into converters, and then how many of them are quality and purchasing on there.
Awesome. All right, Alex, this one's for you. How can we leverage emerging AI tools to improve our growth marketing?
Sure. So I think AI is obviously a hot topic at the moment, and I've got no doubt it's going to have a big impact across marketing over the next 5 years. There's already like a plethora of copywriting tools out there, with more coming out each day, and like the number of image generators based off prompts that you put in, which are incredible. And there are a few actually where you can provide an image of your product and then say like the backdrop that you want on it and create these sort of product images, which are pretty cool. And there's even like full designs of sites and landing pages as well that you can get out. So I think, yeah, you can also imagine that combined with those tools on like the ad side, potentially there will be much more targeted approach. So I think the quantity and quality of data that is being collected by businesses will become key to sort of train models on like how are people using your site, what content are they viewing, and then advertise ads that are going to resonate directly with them in a very sort of bespoke way that these large data models make doable, but in the past haven't been so achievable. So yeah, I think ultimately overall big changes coming down the line, and the key is to sort of be ready to adopt those, evolve your strategies, stay on the cutting edge as much as you possibly can, and grab hold of the new opportunities which are going to open up over the next few years.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Okay, I want to hear from both of you on this one. So what strategies do you have for dealing with seasonality in ads or consumer sentiment and e-commerce? And Michelle, I'd like to hear from you first.
So dealing with seasonality, I think, Alex kind of gives some great insight on his, but like building that anticipation going into it. So just depending on what your product is and the seasonality surrounding it, like how can you build up that anticipation or getting ready for it? So sometimes that is keeping people informed in the off season of, this is coming up, get prepared. But yeah, really just like figuring out a way to like keep them engaged in some method through storytelling, or even just kind of like building your list. So when it comes time to actually being the season, you're ready to start pushing that out to market.
Alex, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think like planning, basically, as much planning as you possibly can do. There are the obvious like dates in the marketing calendar which we stay aware of and plan for. Seasonality is very relevant for us as a business and for all bike related businesses really. And because of our like 2 to 3 month delivery time, we have to put work into notify people that they've got to order now to get it in spring or summer, right, at the peak of the cycling season. So we do messaging around that. And I think what I mentioned before about costs being really at the top of people's mind at the moment, that's related to sort of what's in the news. And I think that is one angle you could take, is like, what is relevant at the moment? What are people talking about? And try and bounce off that, essentially. So we found some success in those kind of approaches.
Awesome. All right, Michelle, coming back to you. How can I convince leadership that we need the budget to adopt growth marketing centric tools?
That is a good question. So I think, again, this all comes down to that data, but not just like the conversion data, but also kind of your operating data. So let's say that you are working on personalization and you're trying to do it on your own website, but maybe you're running into a situation where development can't get it out the door fast enough, or it has to go through these checks. So that delay in your operations may be a justification to getting a tool that would help you kind of like churn out these pages at scale and do this experimentation at scale without having to wait for, a 2-week agile sprint, or the reliance on multiple departments to put the page together. You could really control that all in one space. So that's one area that you could look at in terms of presenting that information to your leadership. If I had this tool, we could move this much faster, and then we could go to market that much faster with this information.
Thank you. Alex, going back to you. I really like your discussion of magic moments. Do you have any examples of them, and or how you use these wow moments to improve current campaigns or develop new ones?
Yeah, so they're also known as like aha moments, and they're, I think, like a recent example of one in my own life that I can think of was like I was sitting with a few friends in an Airbnb actually that we just arrived at, and someone was on the Wi-Fi network, and I showed them how to share the Wi-Fi password with other iPhones, basically a feature that's like 5 years old or something, over 5 years old, but like totally blew their mind. I think that was an example of like a wow moment or an aha moment that like really resonates with people and they remember and they talk about. So another example of that would be like Uber. So I don't know how many of you can remember your first Uber ride that you booked. For me, that was like a crazy experience, and Uber just seems like such an obvious idea that should just always have existed. And so, yeah, I think the test ride experience for us is what the aha moment is for Switch. And like I mentioned before, the further up the funnel you can get those, the better, because it'll hook people in and it will make them more likely to convert. And yeah, I guess in like SaaS, sort of free trials can be another way of achieving that pre-purchase moment. Like get that hook as quickly as you possibly can, and that will keep people engaged.
Awesome, great feedback there. All right, Michelle, back to you. Do you have any suggestions on the types of content we should be developing to tie into our growth marketing efforts?
All the content. So really it's about dissecting into each of those stages. So, somebody at the awareness stage is going to have a different need than someone who is focusing on retention. So really you should kind of put together a marketing plan for each stage of that funnel, and then you should be creating the content that matches with that. So if you're going to be implementing a referral program, make sure that you have a well-optimized page that you can scale with that referral program. If you're doing like an influencer strategy similar to that, or affiliate marketing, like how can you tie that into your affiliate marketers so they have some personalization on there that they can send their traffic to as well. So I would look at every stage and see what's needed, where can you message match in the awareness stage. So looking at the emotional aspects, lifestyle, product features, benefits, kind of like making sure that you're hitting on all the points of where visitors may be coming in from, and then centering your landing pages around those.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We've got time for about one more question here. So for either of you, what can I use to track data?
Sure, I can take this one. I guess quite open-ended. My first question to that would be, what type of data do you want to track? If you're using Instapage has a great data platform built in, and I think there are also like heat maps in there, and you can break down by pages and even variations within experiments of pages. So start there. We also use GA4, and Hotjar is quite insightful for how people are using our site. I use that more on the kind of like where are the pain points, what are people struggling with on the site, but also what are people using a lot of. So I mentioned before the sort of will it fit my bike tool that we're rolling out. Part of that came from us surveying people who didn't buy actually. So we said to people, okay, look, you didn't buy this time. Why was that? we got a great response from that and gave us some insight into the reason that people weren't converting. And part of it was that we had like a sort of MVP version of it on the site already, and people were using it a lot more than we'd anticipated. And so that gave us, again, insight. People are using this tool that isn't great, but we'd built it to sort of prove that there was demand there. And so that was Hotjar coming in to say, have a look at this. We think you should take action here. And that's part of the reason why we have made this tool a reality now.
Excellent. Michelle, anything to add there?
Yeah, I think all of those are great. I think another area that I've seen growing is like Amplitude Analytics, really great for product marketing, kind of like diving into those funnels a little bit deeper. So it really does depend on, you know, if you're a product or your service, but there are a bunch of tools out there. I think Mixpanel is another option if you're looking at like attribution and you really want to see like long-term, like where every touch point is and how that attributes to the conversion. So there are a lot of great options out there. Starting with the core, like Instapage, like Alex says, has a lot of good core features in there, but you can definitely add on from there as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That's all we have time for today. Thank you again for joining us online. And thank you, Alex and Michelle, for the really great discussion and really great tips. If we didn't get to your question, we'll be sure to connect with you via email, and a recording of the webinar will be sent out by the end of the week. We'll also share a copy of our ebook, 53 Tips for Conversion-Focused Landing Pages. Thanks, everyone. Have a great week.